What's going on, Magic fans? Welcome to another episode of The Close-Up. I'm your host, Stephen Cameron, part of the Orlando Magic HQ network. Today, we got a really fun episode. We got Jake Chapman, Orlando Magic broadcast, play-by-play radio host. We have a great conversation about the team. You know, the Magic, we recorded this on Monday, November 11th. The Magic are sitting 5-6 right now, fourth in the East, just coming off a really nice win versus the Washington Wizards. And vibes were high right now. You know we don't have Paulo right now, and they went through a really hard home stretch, road game where they lost 5 games in a row. But they get back home, kind of getting some things back in order. Win versus the Pelicans, win versus the Washington Wizards, and it's not all roses. The Magic are still missing some shots and things like that from three. But Jake and I, we talk about it all. Talk about Magic shooting. We talk about Jonathan Isaac. We talk about Goga Bitadze. We talk about all sorts of stuff. And we even give a nice little preview of the Emirates Cup, the NBA in-season tournament with the Magic and how they're going to fit with Group A despite not having Paulo Banchero. So make sure you tune into the conversation I have with Jake, all right? Before we get to that conversation, I just going to plug all the people that help us make this happen. We're part of the Believe Podcast Network, and they help us get this show out into the world and find us sponsors like BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source from everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup, breakdown, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. With the largest category of odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, and NBA to even political props if you wanted to do that, you have a little bit of everything. Magic fans, smash the over on Goga Bitadze's rebounds. I've been doing that the last couple of days. It's been really good. I've been smashing the over on Tavius Caldwell-Pope's three-point shooting because I know at some point he's going to find his rhythm and get back into it, and the line's been really good. It's been like 1.5. All he's got to do is hit 2, and then you're in the money at right there. So a couple of bets that I've been liking personally. Also, Tristan da Silva from 3. He's been at like 0.5. All he's got to do is hit 1. He's been starting getting, 25 plus minutes a game. That's a pretty safe bet to hit right there. So a couple of Magic bets that I've been liking. We'll see what the lines look like a little bit, these next couple of weeks and games as the Magic continue to improve. But those are some things I've been looking at. Head over to the website today. Get in on one of the online casinos. Get in on a game of blackjack after one of the Magic games are over. If you want to keep gambling, you got some options there. You can play poker, blackjack, or unwind with over 150 different slot games. Head over to the website today. Get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Also, big shout out to our friend Brandon Kravitz. Catch Brandon Kravitz on In the Zone 5 days a week, talking about all the hottest sports topics in Orlando and beyond, live on 96.9 The Game and iHeartRadio. Also, if you're looking for more Magic coverage, Brandon will be hosting an extension of his show on game days. It's In the Zone Game Day Magic from 6 to 6:30 p.m. every weekday that the Magic play a game. If that's not enough, catch bonus content and exclusive interviews about the Magic, sports betting, fantasy, and more on the Zone Heads podcast. You can download and subscribe to that wherever you're listening to this show now. All right, without further ado, let's get into this conversation with the Orlando Magic Radio, Jake Chapman. What's going on, Magic fans? Like I said, I got Jake Chapman, Orlando Magic Radio play-by-play announcer. Jake, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm good, Steven. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can't complain. We're recording this Monday, November 11th, a day after the Magic get their win versus who do they play? The Wizards. It's been a weekend already, and I'm losing it on an early Monday morning. Yeah, the Wizards. The Magic are 4-5, sitting fourth in the East right now. How are you feeling after a couple of home game wins? After the rocky middle of that, like the 5-game road trip wasn't fun, Jake. Let's just be real. How are we feeling now?
A little bit better. Home cooking goes a long way, right? And look, I think, that road trip was probably going to be tough with Paulo Banchero. You find out after that Chicago game, which in hindsight was a game that you really, really needed to win.
Yes.
Because the rest were going to be really, really difficult. I mean, I don't know if anybody expected the Cavs to start 11-0, but I think everybody expected the Dallas-Oklahoma back-to-back to be brutal, even if you had a whole healthy complement of players. So to lose. I mean, I likened it to this. Like, we're not comparing Paulo to LeBron James, but when LeBron leaves a franchise, as he does every 3 or 4 years, you've got this franchise built around a superstar in the middle, and you end up with like a donut, right? Like, the middle drops out. And that's kind of what happened when Paulo Banchero went down with that torn oblique. Everything going back to last year has been building around this guy, and Franz as well. And obviously you've seen Franz be able to slide in and kind of take that mantle. But without Paulo, everything looks different. And that's part of the reason for the shooting problems. And to be able to fix that while you're out on the road without practice time,
playing
traveling through Dallas and Oklahoma and just these brutal places to play, that was going to be tough no matter what. So you get home, you get a little bit of practice time, you get to sleep in your own bed. There's all these other things that come with playing at home. Our guys are young. They talk about the home court advantage and what the fans at Kia Center do and mean to them. And that's real. You can feel that when you're in the building. But, the Advent Health Training Center, where they get all of their treatment and having sort of all of the, accoutrement that comes with being at home, I think that makes a big difference as well. And then, oh, by the way, you played a Pelicans team without just about everybody, and a Washington team that's in, step one of a rebuild. So the competition kind of leveled out a little bit, and I think you are feeling a little bit better after those 2 wins. And now what feels like an important week. Yes, it's NBA Cup games, but Charlotte comes in. They've been pretty good so far this year. What are they, 5-6, 4-6, I think? They're like kind of right hanging with you as far as the Eastern Conference goes. And like, oh, by the way, if you look at the Eastern Conference, the Magic, by virtue of that win last night, now at 5-6 on the season, are tied for fourth. In the Eastern Conference. So it's been Cleveland, Boston, and everybody else. So just want to tread water until you get Paulo back, and I think you'll be feeling okay.
Yeah, I misspoke in the intro. It's 5. They're 5-6, not 4-5. Everyone. So Jake, thanks for correcting me there.
No worries.
Yeah, the East is funny, man. It's like you look at the West standings versus the East standings. You have 2 teams that are above 500, and then it's the Pacers who are 500, sitting at 5-5 in third place. Then like you said, the Magic are sitting in fourth, 5-6. When literally 2 games ago they were in like 8th place. The amount of jumping that can happen in these early part of the season, small sample size, is wild. And the Magic have an opportunity to take advantage of the East right now while they are dealing with injuries, because the rest of the East is still figuring things out. Like the Knicks, they still haven't really figured out their new setup with with adding Cat and the lack of depth that they have. The Heat are the Heat. We don't like them. Not a lot of good things to say about them. And then, the rest of the East is, you got Philadelphia, who's just been injured completely. The Bucks still can't figure anything out, and they've dealt with some health injuries as well. Granted, I expect some of that to shift, but the more the Magic can take during this cushion while teams are still figuring things out, while Paulo is gone, the better. These were tune-up games, in my opinion, right? The Magic played the Wizards and a banged-up Pelicans team. Like you mentioned, there's something about being at home, being in your own bed, not having to travel, being able to commute to the arena, the practice facility in 5 to 10 minutes and not have to travel and stuff like that. But stylistically on the court, what did you see that just kind of like felt a little bit better that made these last couple of games look like, okay, this is kind of a little bit more what we're used to, at least defensively, some offensively? What were some of the things you were noticing like on the court the last couple of games?
Well, a few things. Like, first of all, the defense has been, as advertised basically the entire time. I think right now you were 3rd in defensive rating last night. Right now you're 2nd in defensive
we're second,
rating.
Yeah, 107.
So, I mean, that's that's going to carry, that's going to travel, that's going to carry you through games when the jumpers aren't falling, which we've seen a lot so far this season. But I think you had to figure out, first off, like Franz had to settle in as the alpha. And it is different when you're at the top of the scouting report heading into games. He's got a lot of attention on him. And sometimes he's so good, it's just undeniable. It doesn't matter how many sets of eyes are trying to keep him from the bucket. He's so shifty and so good at getting to his spots that it doesn't matter. But you've seen his assist numbers creep up. The other thing, Stephen, is I think just, and this goes back to trying to fix all of that on the fly as you lose Paulo and Wendell, by the way, out on the road, is rotations. Like Coach Mosley, and he, the plans that you had heading into the season for this is going to be our starters. We're going to try to keep Jalen or Franz or Paulo on the floor with the bench. We like this pairing and this grouping. All of that stuff kind of goes by the wayside when everybody needs to slide into different roles. So, do you think he expected Tristan and Goga to be in the starting lineup by game 11? Probably not.
Probably not.
So everybody is adjusting. There's a ripple effect that goes throughout the roster. And then you also had a shooting slump thrown in there. Like, I don't expect KCP to be as poor shooting the ball from the perimeter as he's been so far this year. He's at 21.6%. Last 4 years, he's shot better than 39% from the field. The last 5 years, better than 38%, from 3-point range. So that stuff is going to kind of progress to the mean as well. And again, you see the Pelicans come in, you see the Wizards come in. You hold them to 88 points and 94. I mean, that's, the defense has been absolutely stifling, and it's just a matter of kind of getting the offense into a rhythm. I think you saw when you were out on the road, those kind of 1 and 2 pass possessions where you're not swinging it side to side, not getting those paint touches and that inside out action. That's when the offense bogs down, but certainly positive signs the last couple nights. And by the way, last night they knocked down 17 triples. So that was a nice development as well.
Yeah, the shooting last night definitely helped. Let's touch on that for a second. The Magic are 8th in 3-point attempts, right? They're taking about 38 point. They're not taking about. They are taking 38.8 3-point attempts per game right now, which is 8th best in the league. Which the last 10 years they were bottom 10 in the league at attempts per game. Big development there. They're pumping up the offense. They're encouraging more offensive pace. They're encouraging more 3-point attempts with how they are playing. But, like we talked about, they're not making very many of them. Last night they made a few more than normal, but they're 29th in the league right now at makes from range at 3-point attempts with 30.2%. Not great. What do you think has to continue to happen? Because this is more than just KCP not hitting his shots, right? This is kind of a team-wide issue. Like, we saw Cole for a long stretch not be able to hit anything. We saw, Jet not be able to hit anything when he was in the rotation. Gary Harris, it's just it seemed like everyone had cold hands. Like, no one could make anything. What do you think has to happen? Is it just do they have to, is the guys still not being comfortable? Do they have to figure out different ways of getting them, different types of look? Because it looks like, at least for me, the looks are good. The shots just aren't going in. What are you seeing on that side that just kind of caused the whole team not to be able to hit shots?
Yeah, similar, right? If the quality of looks are there, and if you've got a career 37% 3-point shooter taking that shot 100 times, the look you're looking for, then you have to trust that as the sample size grows, he's going to get to that 37%. That's kind of what all this is about. They have made a concerted effort to shoot more threes, and that's because holistically, they need to be better from that area of the floor in order to accentuate their 2 best players and what they do well. Paulo in the mid-range and getting to the rack, and Franz getting to the rack as well. And all that stuff we talked about, swinging the ball side to side and creating inside-out action. If you're willing to, and if you're capable of knocking down the perimeter jumper, everything looks better. I think we're just talking about an adjustment period. We're talking about a rookie in the starting lineup. We're talking about Goga, who, yes, he started 33 games last year. We're very comfortable with him, but he is in the starting lineup as well. We're talking about Franz having the ball in his hands and having a usage it's going to go through the roof. And we're talking about veterans like KCP and Gary, who you just have to have faith those numbers are going to level out. I don't think there's any way we're going to look up in April and KCP is still shooting 21% from 3. But all of these things, and the thing we're not thinking about is KCP is in a new place and playing with a new team and not playing with Nikola Jokic. It's an adjustment. Sure. And so I don't think it was going to be, you weren't going to be able to microwave it even with Paulo in there. But I do think, you've seen Caldwell Pope the last couple of nights, for instance, a little more willing to put the ball on the deck and take 1 or 2 dribbles and pull up for a midi. The ball is swinging more. The ball movement has looked much better the last couple of nights. So I think you just got to be patient. I do think there's plenty of cause for concern when you look at how bad the numbers were for that stretch, but it feels like it's starting to turn. I don't think it's as simple as, boy, if that guy just makes more threes and everything else is going to be fixed. It's kind of an across the board sort of issue, and it's not just because they're shooting the ball poorly. There is the quality of looks are good, but can they be better? Can you pass up a good look for a great look? And I think we'll see that start to turn. Certainly, there's two games of positive evidence that it's trending upward right now. But it'll be a big week, and that's so important because of what I said. Everything functions well when you're keeping defenses honest, knocking down the perimeter jumper. So I don't expect them to back off. I think there will be nights where okay, we're not making shots from the perimeter. We're getting where we want to get. We're getting to the free throw line. We're doing these things. Maybe we won't shoot 43. Heading into the season, it was an objective to take and make more threes, and they got the first part down. Now it's a matter of making it.
And they, for a handful of games at the very start, they even had the second part down of making them. The first 4 games of the season, they were also like top 10% in making threes. So like, think things will I know things will eventually even out, and maybe they won't be a top 10 in makes, but they'll probably get to at least league average or a little bit better, in my opinion. And like you mentioned, there's like a lot of adjusting that had to be done. I don't think a lot of Magic fans realized during that 3-game road trip, there was 3 games with 3 different starting lineups. There's an adjustment that's going to need to made there. Speaking of adjustments, let's talk about Jonathan Isaac for a second. We know he's a super talented player, elite defender, but he has just looked, at least from my perspective and some other Magic fans' perspective, a little bit off. I don't know if it's maybe that hip injury that he occurred on game 1 versus the Heat is still kind of like bothering him. Maybe it's the new playing weight. We know he got up to roughly around 250 pounds this offseason of added muscle to be able to handle more physicality. But he hasn't necessarily been bad, but something doesn't feel 100% with him yet. What have you been noticing with Jonathan Isaac so far, particularly in the last couple of games since he's come back and, kind of getting himself back into rhythm and form? Is it just still getting used to the new season, or is it something else that we're just, something else that's going on?
Well, I think it's probably a little bit of everything. He missed 3 games with that hip. They're going to try to keep his minutes, at least a cap on him in some sense early on in the season. You want J.I. to be healthy come March.
Load manage him a bit.
And that's the main objective. So I think, and you can call it that, but I think he's going to play. They're just going to try to make sure he plays in a bench role, and then potentially you up it towards as the season progresses and as you get closer to the postseason. Ideally,
when I say load manage, I meant specific, like load managing his minutes, not load managing games, like a lot of people tend to see. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to clarify. It's like they're not load managing by purposely missing. Yeah. It's a form of load management with his minutes at the moment. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Because we're not talking Embiid type stuff here. And I think you had a sense of that, but I think it's difficult to find a rhythm too, especially when, if the second night of a back-to-back, you might have a cap on the minutes, or because J.I. is that important to the long-term vision. I think if you're up 20, you don't put him back out there, right? You want to try to save all of the tread on those tires, if at all possible. You go back to the Indiana game, he was 4 for 4 from the field. You go back to the New Orleans game, 9 minutes, he was 4 for 4 from the field, had 10 points. The blocks and the steal numbers aren't necessarily there right now, but I think that's more just kind of settling in. Like, there's been a lot of movement. Finally, last night, I'm sitting there watching the bench with Cole in the rotation, and we can talk about Cole and Jet and what we've seen there as well. But with Cole in there, with AB, Gary, Mo, and J.I., I'm going, this is the second unit that they envisioned. And maybe Tristan was going to play a role there. Tristan's in the starting lineup right now. We'll see what happens when you get healthy. But that feels like a bench bunch, and they played like it. I think it's more a settling in thing. I think the weight thing is kind of interesting. Like, he's going to have to adjust to playing and to staying as light on his feet as he's always been, carrying that bigger load. But the idea of him adding that weight was to be able to bang a little bit more. Yeah. And I think you've seen that as well. The other night in that Indiana game, he had 6 rebounds, 16 minutes. Like, you want him to be able to maintain what made J.I., but withstand kind of the punishment of an 82-game season a little bit better. And let's be frank, like, even last year, it was about as good as we've seen health-wise. And I shouldn't say about. It was as good as we've seen health-wise for him, playing 58 games. But you want to make sure that he is able to, like, the idea here is that he plays in all of the games, just not quite as many. So I think it's, I think the plan long-term is going to benefit he and the team, but I think there's probably, he's got to kind of slide into it early on in the season.
Yeah, I'm not as worried about the minutes as some people are. I'm pretty active on the Twitter NBA Magic streets, and see some people yell like, "Why is he only playing this many minutes?" It's just, guys, it's just to get him to the end of the season healthy. This isn't even as a second unit player, even if he wasn't on a minutes restriction, he probably would only be playing maybe 4 more minutes, 5 more minutes a game. Their second unit players don't play a ton, maybe low 20s. He's playing mid-teens right now. So I'm not really concerned about it. I just like sometimes when I see him defensively, it's like it just seems like he's a hair slow on certain things a little bit, and just trying to, like, it's not all clicked in 100% yet. But I mean, I say that, in the Magic are second in defensive rating, and like I'm also like, what's the complaint there? The Magic are doing great defensively, so I don't know. Just wanted to get your thoughts there. Positively, Goga, he's been crushing it stepping into this starting role in wake of Wendell Carter Jr., who for one game dealt with knee tendonitis and then now is dealing with plantar fasciitis in his foot, which we know is something that bothered him in years past. And I think he's considered day-to-day at the moment, but I think we'll probably, if I had to take a guess, we'll probably see Goga for at least another week-ish or so, depending on how Wendell Carter recovers. Now, granted, that's no information. I'm speculating on that, right? Wendell Carter Jr. could come back tomorrow and surprise me. But Goga, he's looked awesome, man. What are you seeing from Goga right now that's just making him such a seamless fit? And like, I think we both can agree, like, the reason why they gave him this 3-year contract is because we knew, J.I. might miss a little bit of time here and there. Wendell Carter constantly misses, 15 to 20 plus games every season. So it's like, the signing made a ton of sense, but he's just excelling in it. What are you seeing right now, Jake?
Well, he's comfortable. I mean, he started 33 games last year. And so, Coach Mosley, and this goes back to the bench, he has a vision of what he wants the second unit to look like. And so, you don't very often see what we saw at the beginning of last year. AB and Goga go from the third unit to the first. And it works, and they do that for an extended stretch. And then it's very similar this year. You want Mo in that second unit, and you want J.I. in that second unit, and you want more shooting in the starting lineup when Paulo goes down. And so Tristan da Silva goes from not playing as a rookie to starter. And you do the same thing with Goga, and you know what to expect from Goga. I think consistency is one of the biggest attributes of him. I mean, every night it's 10 points, 10 rebounds, essentially. He's averaging 10 and a half in the 4 games he's been starting. I think he's our best rim protector. I think J.I. can be in extended minutes when he's on the floor. I think Goga does it more consistently than anybody else on the team. He's averaging under 2 blocks a game, just under 1.8 in the 4 games since he's been inserted in the starting lineup. And I'll give it one more thing that I love about him, and sometimes I don't think we notice it. The assist numbers, he averages 3 assists per game, which for somebody like him is fantastic. But
that's great.
Michael Carter-Williams drew this to my attention, and I don't really think about it. And then I started watching for it, and you see it. He makes quick decisions every time the ball comes to him. There is no 2-3 dribbles. I'm going to back somebody down and get to my hook. He knows it's not his game. And if he doesn't have a quick look going up with it, he's swinging that thing back and forth. And so all of those things are kind of exactly what you're looking for from a starting center in today's NBA. He can protect the rim. Is he going to space the floor? No, probably not. He can knock down a triple here and there. And it's good enough that at the very least he keeps a defender pressed up on him. They're not dropping off him like, Rudy or whatever. But every time the ball finds Goga Bitadze, it is a quick decision, and he makes it hard on defenses to adjust from there. He's shot the ball very efficiently, 67%, but he just functions well. He's just a good piece, for Franz and for everybody else who you're kind of featuring offensively. Set screens, plays a little dribble handoff set, gets to the rack, grabs offensive rebounds. He does all of the things you're looking for from a modern big man. And so, yeah, what a luxury to have. You're right. Like, it made total sense when you saw the way he played last year, the way he played in a pinch, and the type of teammate he was. Like, he signed the contract, and then he starts the season, as a member of the Green Goblins again, and he doesn't care. And somebody goes down, and he's back in the starting lineup, and he delivers. And it can be really difficult for young players who are still finding their way to kind of accept that role. And Goga's the best, man. I'm so happy for him.
It's funny because, like, him and Wendell, they're both very good at what they do, but they have different styles of playing. So the team looks a little bit different with each one in the lineup. Wendell's going to be a little bit more of a perimeter threat. They're going to use him as a perimeter threat. They're also going to use him a little bit offensively every now and then to run the ball through because he's a very gifted passer too. But Goga, like, he's doing all the little things that, cleaning up the glass really easily, finishing plays. We see him almost every game or two getting tip in passes off of a missed shot from someone else. It's just really fun to see him just continue to excel. And it's like there's conversations out there. It's like, well, what do we do when Wendell Carter Jr. comes back? Oh, Wendell Carter's probably going to go back into the starting lineup, as he should, because he's a really good basketball player. But in my opinion, we've seen the improvements of Goga this year from last year. Last year, he was solid. But I think there was times, particularly towards the second half of his run as a starter, where there was a little bit of overthinking going on, right? And some of those quick instincts became a little bit of not as fast, where this year, small sample size, 3-4 games so far, those instincts are just right there every single time and making quick decisions. And there's a confidence with that. And I just think that's so valuable. Like, Coach Mosley, you got to find a way to get Goga some minutes when Wendell Carter Jr. comes back. I don't know what that looks like, but like, he's just too good to keep off the floor, in my opinion, right now. And so I think it's going to make Coach have some hard decisions. Not necessarily who starts, but how do you still get someone who's so positive for this team, on the floor at times when, it's hard to keep someone that good on the bench for super long. So I'm looking forward to it. Jake, you mentioned it earlier. We haven't touched it. I haven't talked about it since last year, really. And it's the in-season tournament. It starts this week. Group play starts tomorrow. The Magic verse, or potentially when listeners are listening to this podcast, tomorrow the Magic play the Charlotte Hornets, and then on Friday they have another group play game on versus the 76ers. So, what are you kind of feeling around the in-season tournament this year? Has the team been talking about it? I know we were feeling probably a little bit more optimistic about doing really well and going further in it when Paulo was around, but have you heard them talk about it much? What are you kind of picking up about the team and the vibes with the in-season tournament so far?
Steven, I'm going to be honest. I haven't asked them and I haven't heard them talk about it much, but it's Monday. They have the day off today. So tomorrow will be the day to get that sound. It's a day at a time with this group, man.
Yeah, that's
fair. Coach Mosley sets it that way. We will. And look, last year, I'll just go based off of what they all were talking about last year. They did. They were like, yeah, it's something different. I know the courts kind of get them all fired up. I'm anxious to see to get to the arena tomorrow and see the NBA Cup court laid down. And then, of course, we got to switch it out for Wednesday because it's a back-to-back. But Wednesday is not an NBA Cup game, and then switch it back for Friday. So a whole lot of work for the conversions team at Kia Center. Those guys all do an awesome job. Look, I think it felt like a success last year, didn't it? Here's the whole thing with me, because sometimes I'm getting old, Steven, and sometimes I can be a little cynical about stuff like this. The thing with me that kind of smoothed it over last year, I think it's exciting. I think doing new things and thinking outside the box is fantastic. If it were a whole separate set of games that didn't apply to the 82, I think I would have had a bit of an issue with it. Like, why are we just adding things? And the 82 is already a really long season, but because they're able to do it and fit it into the regular season. And so, yes, there's an added element to Tuesdays and Fridays in the month of November when you kind of need a little bit of a spark, I think, as the holidays are approaching. You got football going on, all of these things. I think the fact that we're able to do it, but it still counts as one of 82. It still counts for the standings that we all actually really care about. I think that's good. And I do kind of like the point differential thing in the group play. I think it's just an added bonus. It's not anything that takes away from anything. And I do think this is just based on reactions that I heard from the players and even from fans. Like, the courts make a difference. You're flipping through the channels and you see the Bulls all red court and you're like, oh my goodness, that's hideous. Or maybe you love it, but it's something kind of fresh. And so we'll see. I'm sure tomorrow we'll get some good sound, and I'm sure they, I don't know that they had it circled when we started the season, but today they're probably thinking about how it's going to be a little bit different tomorrow. And I think that's a good thing.
I'm optimistic. I enjoyed the group cup last year. I went to the home game versus the Raptors, and that was such an exciting, fun, exhilarating atmosphere and environment. I can't wait for Magic fans to hopefully feel that again this year, starting off, versus the Hornets. And I think kind of like with the play-in tournament for the NBA, it might take a season or two to really kind of click into place, and then it'll really take off, culturally too. What do you think about the Magic's grouping though, right? So there's the Knicks, 76ers, the Nets, they've not been as easy as a lot of people have thought this year, and then the Hornets. Like, who do you think are the teams that are obviously we can point to the Knicks, but like, how do you feel like the Magic without Paulo kind of fit into this grouping of Group A?
Well, it's funny because that's, you think about it at the beginning of the season and you're going, oh, the Knicks and the Sixers. And by the way, Brooklyn was basically the reason that we didn't advance last year, that won, 20-point win. And so, and look, Jordy Fernandez doing a great job with the Brooklyn Nets, I think. I think the Knicks have a lot of work to do because of, and you mentioned at the beginning of the chat, there's no depth with that team. And so they may have the best starting 5, 6, 7 come March in the Eastern Conference, or one of them, but they've got some work to do. And then Philadelphia has just been an absolute mess. Now, I happen to think Philadelphia is going to be fine eventually, but you got to figure out a way to get all those guys on the floor together, and it didn't seem like that's going to happen until January, maybe not even until February or March. The whole reason that I think Philadelphia is going to be fine is because I think Nick Nurse is a fantastic coach. They're not going to be able to figure that out by Wednesday, I don't think. Who knows who we're going to see, or by Friday. So I don't know. When you go through it, I think early on you would have said, boy, it's the Knicks group to lose. But they haven't been world beaters just yet. So it's going to be really interesting, and it's our first look at a couple. I do think New York and Philadelphia are contenders in the Eastern Conference. But I think they both have had kind of slow starts to the season, and there's a lot of issues that they need to work out, kind of like us. They've got personnel changes, and they've got injury issues, obviously. They've got suspensions, all of these things to work through. So we might be catching them at a good time.
If you would have asked me a week and a half ago, I would have said a different answer, because Paula had just gone down and there wasn't as much information yet on some of the other teams in our grouping. I would have been a lot more nervous, but I'm actually more optimistic right now, just knowing, okay, 76ers, Paul George is like the only kind of healthy player on that team at the moment, and like, air quote healthy. Maxi's going to be out likely out this Friday. Embiid, I can't remember if he's going to, I don't remember when his suspension ends, if it's going to count for Friday's game or not. But, they're kind of a mess still, figuring things out. I agree with you. They're going to be good long-term. Not really too worried about it. They'll figure it out. The Knicks, I think out of all the teams, are probably the Magic's toughest opponent at the moment. But again, you and I both talked about it. They're figuring out a lot of things. They're figuring out how Cat fits in that offense. They're figuring out how to figure out their depth and their rotations with that. But I think there's some wiggle room with that team too right now, even with the depleted Magic without Wendell Carter Jr. and Paulo. And then the Hornets and the Nets, can't sleep on those teams. They both have talented players on them. Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball, very good basketball players. The Nets have they might not have any superstars, but they got a ton of really good role players that are all trying to prove they're worth a team taking a shot on if the Nets decide to move them right now. And we saw how they played the Magic. They played the Magic really well when they versed them earlier in the season. So I'm not going to say it's a cakewalk with any of these teams, but even without Paulo, I think the Magic have a shot of potentially coming out of this group. Do you feel those same sentiments?
Yeah, and it feels like Tuesday's kind of big, doesn't it? Because you're right, Charlotte. All of a sudden, I was thinking about them over the weekend as I was, I think we were on the post-game show and I was talking about games coming up, and I lumped them in with Washington, and I felt bad. I was like, wait a second, if LaMelo Ball's on the floor, I mean, the guy's averaging 29 points a game. In Washington, by the way, I just want to get this on the record: the future is bright. Like, they finally, I think, did it right, and they have some really fun young talent. They're just really, really raw still. Charlotte, like Brandon Miller had a really good back half of the season last year. And when LaMelo is right, he is an all-star caliber player. He's been really good so far this year. I think Charles Lee's done a really good job as well. I'm kind of underrated. So it's going to be interesting. I think tomorrow will tell you a lot. You're right. I think the Knicks, I think Vegas would probably tell you the Knicks are the favorite to come out of the grouping. But these are going to be good tests this week. And that's why I said with Indiana in the middle there and then Philadelphia, regardless of who we see, I think Embiid's suspension will be done. It was a 3-game and it was assessed last week, which by the way, if the guy's not playing, how can you suspend him? Like if he's just like, yeah, okay, go ahead.
I was wondering about that too.
Perfect. Like it doesn't make a ton of sense.
So weird.
But, knowing our luck, he'll be fresh and ready to go come Friday night. But no, I think, look, New York is certainly the most talented team. I think they're, doesn't it seem like they're an injury away from being in trouble? But they do. They've got the top 4 or 5, just the way Tibbs wants it. He's going to play those guys 35 plus minutes all season long. We'll see what they look like in May. But I would think, yes, New York will be your stiffest competition. And I will say this before we leave this topic, like it did as it kind of got going last year, and you realized that Brooklyn point differential and all, like they were scoreboard watching. They wanted to advance. So I think the idea of going and playing in the 18 tournament, advancing out of your group, going to Vegas, doing all that fun stuff definitely appeals to our guys. Who doesn't want a trip to Vegas? But our guys are young. They want that shine. Like part of getting to the postseason last year was just the stage and being able to play national games, which, as you know, and I'm sure you talk about a lot, is kind of a rarity for us down here. It's one of those boxes that I know they want to check is advancing and just getting more eyeballs on what we got cooking down here.
Yeah, and I think they have a good shot at doing it this year. And I don't know. I think Paulo needs to come back. We need him to get back healthy. But Franz is starting to adjust. Like I was reading a stat earlier, and outside of the 4 or 5 games that he was dealing with sickness, he scored 20 plus points in every single game that he's been, fully healthy without dealing with any colds or anything like that. So psyched about this team. Let me ask you one more question, Jake, and then we'll wrap this up. Broadcast question. How the vibes with MCW and Terrence Ross hanging out? Some Magic fan favorites with you guys. Like what's been going on your world with those guys hanging around?
Yeah, it's been fun. They've mostly been doing home games. MCW came in for a couple away games during the road trip as well, but we'll have them, when the atmosphere is proper. The home games at Kia Center. Every home game will have one of Michael Carter-Williams or Terrence Ross with me. T did the postseason with me last year, so Terrence got his feet wet there. I mean, these are 2 fan favorites, and for good reason. MCW was one of like my guys. Like I always have kind of guys on the team that I'm like, that dude plays hard every second he's on the floor. Yep. Love that guy. And that's Michael Carter-Williams, right? Like and I knew he was going to be good at it because it's kind of like a catcher in baseball. Like you could tell he sees the game. He's got such a high basketball IQ, and he's got a great personality. And then Terrence is like, at one point, it wasn't a 50-point game. MCW was with me for the 50-pointer. But at one point last year in the playoffs, when Paulo was going off, I turned to Terrence and I'm like, you're probably the only person in the building and in the city right now who knows what he feels like, right? Like Terrence is just one of the most gifted players we've ever seen. He scored 50 in a game when he was a Toronto Raptor. Obviously, so important to the franchise over the course of the last, 7 seasons before he left and retired. So it's been awesome having both of them. They're different. Like, they were different players and they have different styles, but they're both fantastic, very good young broadcasters. I say young, they're retired NBA players, but still younger than me. And they're still working at it, but both have awesome attitudes and yeah, it's just fun not yapping into the void, having somebody to talk to. And every night they're on the air with me, I learned something, and that's the best. They were, it's pretty cool to see, Washington slip into a zone and to have them recognize it, and then to be able to dig kind of deep about how you beat the zone. Who's flashing to the nail? What do you want to do here? How does it give you offensive rebounding opportunities? They just see the game, and they're funny too because they're still getting used to it, and they're both so close to the game. Terrence specifically, as he sees it, he's like hitting me and pointing as the play's developing and as I'm calling it, because they just are both so enthusiastic about the game. So having them has been a lot of fun. Having them for home games where they get to feel the juice and the energy in that building from the club level and try to channel it into the broadcast. That's been a lot of fun as well. It's been great.
I'm loving having the broadcast team back. It was a long summer. But now we got Terrence and MCW, as we mentioned, Brandon Kravitz, friend of the show, obviously Dante and David Steele and Jeff. It's great to have the full groupings back. Luckily for me, I don't live in Orlando, and not luckily, I love living in Orlando. I miss it dearly, but because of where I live, I get a lot of the first half of the games in my commute. So I get to listen to the radio. And then when I get back home, I transition to the TV so I can watch it. And so I get both broadcasts. It's pretty fun to mix it up. And, I think there's something special about listening to a radio broadcast. If for the average person, it might take them a minute to like kind of get used to it. But like there's a visualization that really can happen, particularly if you start listening to multiple games in a row. Like I went for so many years only watching, and then I had a different job for a while and I had to listen to tons of games on the radio. And it's a different experience and it's super fun. And if it's the good broadcast team, it really clicks, and you guys always do a great job. And so Magic fans, don't do anything dangerous. Don't watch a game and drive. Turn on the radio, listen to the great broadcast that Jake and the team do, and feel what it was like to kind of kick it into the old days back in the day when there wasn't TV and you just had to listen to it on the broadcast. So,
well, Steven, I just want to say I really appreciate you saying that. That's why I got into it, right? Like it's how I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, listening to Joe Tate call Cavs games and picturing it happen. And if I am painting any sort of a picture, then I'm doing my job. And if anybody wants to listen, and by the way, Terrence and Mike have been awesome. BK is awesome. Tyler Karen produces for us. And then, of course, I think we got the best TV broadcasters in the business. But if anybody wants to listen to our broadcast and they're out of market like you are, Steven, Sirius is always a great way to do it. You can find us there. And then NBA League Audio Pass outside of the Orlando area. It's like a small subscription fee if you want to listen to the Orlando Magic Audio Network, Steven.
Well worth it, people. Jake, we've been chatting for 40 minutes. I'm going to let you go so we don't hit our mark that we said we weren't going to hit. I appreciate you so much. I'm sure we will get you back on the show later this season. Enjoy the start of the NBA in tournament season, Emirates Cup thing, whatever they're calling it now. I hope you enjoy the kickoff of that. And Magic fans, let the Magic they're still in it. All right. We're still here. Let's go Magic. See y'all next time. Peace.